Suzuki does not suck. Rick Wiggins here with Stephen Cohen. We're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens after 6 games. The team is 2-3-1. They haven't won a game in, I believe, 3 games. They went into overtime and penalty shots and lost in 9 shots last game. As we talked a couple of games ago, we had some concerns about where they were with regards to goaltending, and some offensive lines. I think the problems still remain, and so if you look at the last few games, especially against the Kings, the Canadians just looked pretty bad. I think a little bit after that, they they played better game on Saturday, but they just did not. They did not. You know, they had some challenges in the first period. We're down 2-0 until the last few seconds. Caulfield got a nice goal. And then in the second period, I thought they played a better game other than getting stuck in their own end again for a while. It seems to be a recurring problem. And I want to talk about that one a little bit with you. And then they scored. They actually had a decent period. They scored with Mayu, put a puck in the net for the first time in his career. Good for him. And in the third period, teams traded goals. There was a lot of penalties, etc. As you and I spoke in before, the first line, although they're not playing the best, I would say, they are producing. You have what's it called? Caulfield has 6 goals and an assist. What's his name? Slavkovsky has an assist and 1 goal and 5 assists. And even Nick Suzuki, who looks a little bit slow out there, still has 5 assists in 6 games. So the first line is producing. I think we all agree that Lane Hudson is looks very comfortable out there and is just improving defensively, and he's always looked good offensively in the 6+2 games that he's played in the NHL. So, from my perspective, what I've said all along is the coach needs to do something about the next 9 players. Now there are players that are playing well in the bottom 9, if you want to call it that, outside of the top 3. But they're just not producing as much. You have, I think Evans and Gallagher are having some good runs, as well as Heineman, and Kapanen had a nice game last game. But there's a lot of players that aren't producing. And what I suggested in the last show was to put those 3 lines in a blender and figure out, and honestly, wherever it goes, any one of it looks like any one of those 9 guys could play together and do something different. And whether they're second, third, or fourth line, it doesn't really matter. What we did see in practice today was Slavkovsky, has an injury that on his shoulder that he had in practice, and he played the game, but he missed practice, and so they put Doc on that line, which would be interesting to see if it can kickstart his year. But as you know, he's coming off an injury. He doesn't look great out there. He's still the same Doc that looked great last year as a person, but I just think he needs to, step it up. And again, I don't think he's not trying. I think he's just a step behind, whether it's his speed or
Yeah,
whether it's his.
yeah,
So that's kind of where I'm at. So I would love to have your take on what you think the Canadians are like so far, and anything you're thinking about in terms of changes, and what would be the changes you'd think of.
yeah. So I don't quite agree with you about. With Doc, he's definitely. I agree with you that he's a step behind. He's. I think there's something in his mind. I don't think it's physical. I think it's mental. I think he's worried about pushing the knee a little too much. But I remember last year before the injury, he had a pep in his step. He was hitting. He was, which is really part of his game, getting in the corners, digging, creating chances, and you don't see that this season so far. So I think it's mental, and maybe you're right. I'm gonna, let's give him a chance on the first line with Suzuki and Caulfield, and who knows, maybe that'll kickstart something. Um, but I agree with you. Something has got to change with the Lions because we need to generate some offense. If you think about it over the years, I don't think we've ever had this kind of equity across 4 lines. In my opinion, in theory, if you look at the players, there really isn't. If you take Pez out of the fourth line, in my opinion, every one of those lines to be a second, third, or fourth line, and is capable of producing. Again, that's just what I think. And who knows? One game, it's just gonna you'll see like two or three lines start clicking and producing, and then we might get a 7 or 8 goal game. So I think it's just a matter of time. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I mean I'm on the same page. I think one of the things that's been good about this season is that they have depth, right? They have depth in the bottom six. The bottom six players are a good bottom six. You know, the problem is that we have 9 guys, and at this point, with Doc not playing well and Lane injured, we don't really have a second line. Like we don't have another tier. There's players missing. I mean,
Yeah.
Kapanen has the potential. I still think Wah has the potential when given the opportunity,
Right.
and Lane obviously and Doc. But those guys, you know, Kapanen is young. I think it's only 6 games into his NHL season. Uh, What I was suggesting on my last podcast was to have Kapanen jump up to that line with Doc, and have either Heineman or somebody else. I wouldn't put Newhook in there. Like you and I both agree, I think Newhook is probably not
Right.
going to be a high producing second line player. I think he's a solid NHL player that can help a team on the bottom
Right.
six. But again, I think putting him on the top six is not going to be where they're going to be
So
successful.
so I think you mentioned the player that has intrigued me over the last couple of games. He scored a couple of goals.
Hmm.
Heineman.
Yep.
Listen, this kid came out of nowhere. I didn't even have him making the team to
Do you
start
know?
the
Do you know who?
season.
Do you know who he got traded for? Do
Yeah.
you know? Do you remember? Do you remember the trade? Do you remember the trade?
No, I
Ty,
don't actually.
Heineman was traded for Tyler Toffoli and a second round pick.
Oh yeah.
So just so you know, just
Yeah.
so you know.
I think we all miss Tyler Toffoli and the offense that he brings to the table. That I think that was probably. I mean, don't get me going on Tyler Toffoli
No, I know.
and
Let's
letting
not
him
go
go
there because he's not on the team.
because
But
he's not on the team. And right now, I think we all wish that we had somebody who could put 70 points. You know, a guaranteed 70 points for the season. But everybody thought, oh yeah, it's so easy to score 70 points in the NHL. They're a dime a dozen, but clearly that's not the case. But let's take a step back and talk about Heineman.
mhm.
Um, so young kid, and he's got a little bit, his hand. I thought his hand in my mind. I was thinking of someone who skates hard and who has hands of cement. But actually,
Like
he
Josh
does
Anderson.
not have hands of cement. He's got some soft hands. He's got a good shot. He moves well. He's a big player. He hits, and
Hmm.
he's got that little European flair to him. And who knows? Maybe he might be the person that clicks on the second line. Maybe putting him with, like you said, Kapanen. And I listen. We can try Dahl, but I would go with the Swedish Finnish connection of Armia, Kapanen, and Heineman.
Hmm.
And I have a good feeling about the European second line or third line, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, I agree. I think that's a place where I think I agree with you in terms of where, anyone they put with, I think Kapanen and Heineman, they even have a bit of chemistry. We saw it in the rookie camp. We
right,
saw in the first few games of the preseason, they scored a few goals together.
right,
I agree pairing those two together. I just think there's something to having Doc or Slavkovsky on that line potentially,
right,
and then you basically have 2 solid lines. If you start splitting it up, right, the problem you have then is, even though they're good, they're not a true NHL second line yet. They're going to be, but like you said, they're a third line. If you're going to be a playoff team, and you have a Kapanen, Armia, and Heineman as your third line, that would be doable for me. But you're missing a second line. Now maybe that second line will be Newhook, Doc, and Lane, like they said it would be. But we have never seen that, so we can't say that. Um, I don't disagree. But what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you find a second line with the Montreal Canadiens who do you play
Right.
Doc with or Slavkovsky with if you're taking him off of that line? What's the line that makes Doc, valuable to your team? I know he's a step behind, but he's got a ton of skill. He's got a ton of talent.
So maybe
He's
maybe we add him. We put him on that first line, just like
Mhm.
Marty was thinking, and move Slav onto the line with Kapanen and Heineman, and there you go. You have potentially a good second line, and Slav Heineman. It's still a European line technically.
There you go.
You're just replacing Armia with Slav, and yeah, I think
I,
we
I
could.
mean, I think we're saying the same things, which is like the Canadians look like they are struggling offensively or just defensively offensively because they have a line of Doc and Newhook together that's just not successful. I mean, I don't care how it's gonna. I don't think it'll take 10 games. I don't think it'll take 20 games. In my opinion, if you listen to one of my first episodes when they were talking about Newhook on the line with Doc and Laney, I said I want Wah. I want somebody else. I think Heineman is a great winger for a second line because he, like you said, he brings energy. I knew you'd love the kid because I've watched him for a few years now too, and he's the type of player that reminds me of a young Josh Anderson that can actually you know hit the net. I'll leave it at that. But other than that, the he from my perspective, I don't disagree. The problem we have is that I don't know if Marty, I don't think Marty or some of the other folks are as see the urgency like some of the fans are thinking, which is, the first line is the first line. I think Suzuki needs to step up. I'm not worried about them. It's 6 games into the season. He's going to lose his summer fat, if we want to call it that. He gained a few pounds. I think he gained muscle, but when you're young, you're trying to figure out what's the best weight to play in. I think he'll be fine. Caulfield's fine. Um, the other thing we have a problem with, and I don't know if Heineman's the guy. We have to figure. Have you seen Heineman take a one-time shot yet? Because
No, no.
here's why I'm asking. Right, the one thing I've noticed is Lane Hudson is a left-handed shot defenseman, and he makes a ton of moves, and it ends up being on his forehand. He passes it cross ice to somebody on the right wing, and it's usually Dvorak or Gallagher
Yeah.
or Josh Anderson or even Armia. They're all right-handed shots, or Dvorak doesn't have a one-time shot, and there really isn't a guy on the Canadians that has a one-time shot that's left-handed, because I think that's a big miss. Now, why I'm bringing that up is there's a gentleman in the minor leagues named Joshua Waugh who does have a one-time shot, and he's left-handed. And I think once we see Joshua Waugh in the NHL again, which won't be long, I think he will fit that bill, and he would be a player that could fit nicely with a Kapanen and a Heineman potentially too. So where I'm going with that is, from my perspective, like I said from the beginning, it's not about the first line; it's about taking the other 9 guys and throwing them in a blender. So I guess other than that, it sounds like you're relatively happy with the line of Gallagher, Josh Anderson, and Evans.
Uh, I'm. I mean, I don't see production, so I'd like to see production from a little bit
I
more
mean,
than.
Gallagher has 2 goals, and they scored
Yeah.
a goal last game with Mayu and Evans. So I mean, I'm just going to take a quick look. I don't think he has a lot of points, but Evans, yeah, he only has a couple of assists. Yeah, I mean, the fourth line and third line are not necessarily producing lines, but they are, they're, if you look at the stats, Arpon uh, from the Athletic put an article, and they're actually the best line on the Canadians in terms of possession, offensive
That's
possession. So they're keeping the puck more, they're getting it out of their zone and stuff like that. So let's talk about the zone. So I think we we can talk in circles about who actually is going to be the best lines. I don't know if Marty's going to change anything. He talked in his interview today. He says I'm not opposed to switching the lines, but it's going to be more of a gut feeling, not a planned plan. So I anticipate, to be honest, that you're going to see the same lines again tomorrow. I'm disappointed in that. I think maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. At least to start the game, if they play well, fine. But they're playing the New York Rangers, which is not going to be an easy game to begin with.
Right.
Here's my take on the defensive side of the puck. The Montreal Canadiens play a man-on-man defense. So what that means, obviously, in their own end, is you'll see, defensemen following the forwards all the way up to the point. They're moving all over the place. It works well in period 1 and 3 because if they get tired and they're close to the bench, they jump off and they replace it, and they stay a little bit less more fresh. But in the second period, if they get hemmed in, it gets stuck. So the one thing I would throw out there is the Canadians need to change their system on the defensive side of the puck. They have to figure out how to play more of a box like
Yeah.
old school kind of defense. Um, but but again, from my perspective, the problem lies in the fact that there's just not enough depth in the not depth. There's not enough. There's not a second line on this team again, and that's the problem we had last year. The Canadians had one line, and it led to, the other team putting either their best line against them or a checking line against them,
Yeah.
and then they had to fight. And that's what's happening again this year, and
I
that's what they were
think
hoping with.
I think Rick, I think it's early in the season. It's we're 6 games in. Um, so let's give it, I would say, 4 more games before we kind of panic on the goals. Um, I think I think that it's just the NHL. You've seen it time in and time again, right? Next game they can pop in 8 goals, and then you're like, "Whoa, where did that offense come from?" So, um, listen, let's look at scoring chances. Do we see that some of the other players are getting scoring chances? I do see that. I saw Heineman get some scoring chances. Kapanen. These are players that are not playing on the first line. Josh Anderson, as always, he gets his chances. Sometimes he misses the net. Um, so there are players that are not on the first line that are getting their scoring opportunities, and I've got to think that the puck's going to go in the net at one point. So
Yeah, I mean, the problem we've had, to be honest, is that's the problem. It's not the scoring chances, it's the lack of possession, right? The Canadians outside of Lane Hudson do not possess the puck, and so the problem they're having isn't scoring chances. They're just not possessing the puck. It's a one and done type of thing, and then they lose it, and then they come back. If you watch the game against Boston, if you watch the game against the Kings, even the game against Pittsburgh, and pretty much every game except for maybe Ottawa, they've basically been hemmed in their own end, looking like they're killing a penalty for
no,
more
no,
than half
no,
the game.
no doubt, no doubt.
And
But you
that's a
know,
problem. That's a
yeah,
problem, right?
absolutely. But if you want to talk about players that can hold on to the puck, let's talk about a few of those players. So you have obviously Lane Hudson, who can hold on to the puck. Believe it or not, Armia is a player that you give him the puck in the corner and he'll cycle in the corner, really well. You
Every
add him
third
to Kapanen, who, from
every
what
third
I've
game,
seen,
every
is
third
also
game.
a player. Sorry.
I said every third game or so he does that. That's
Yeah,
the
well,
problem.
no, I think, and you put him with Kapanen, who in the preseason, and he's shown glimpses of it in the regular season, has held on to the puck, and you put him together, those two together, and I think you know maybe you're going to get some more puck possession, putting him on with Lane Hudson, and who knows, maybe that'll generate some scoring chances, or
Yeah.
some more scoring chances, and the
No, I
ability
mean,
to
I,
kind of
I
score.
agree with you. I think that the problem we have right now is that the team is kind of stale on the bottom nine, and even the first line, to the point where there needs to
Yeah,
be a little bit of a shakeup. But I think to your point, I think Marty and the Canadians look at it in blocks of 10. I think they're gonna go with it for 10 games, and
yeah,
if unless they're two, what is it, 2-9 and 2-7-1 after 10. I think unless they really lose every game from now to the first 10 games,
Yeah.
It's not going to really hurt them to do this experiment because, like you said, Doc is a
Yeah.
great player in my opinion, and he's a possession guy when he's good, right? When he's a
Yeah.
good player, he's the guy that goes in the corner,
Yeah.
gets the puck. He has great hands. He's a great playmaker. And I understand why they want a new hook in there because in his peak, he's got the speed to get in the corners. But like you said last show, he doesn't seem to win battles like the other guys do. So, but at least he can potentially cause a turnover or something like that where Doc and Armia, to your point, are possessing the puck. And I think that's the reason why they're tried what they're trying. But from my
Yeah.
perspective, it's not working. And it's a combination of Doc just not having the legs. Armia is totally inconsistent. And Newick is not a guy that's going to possess the puck. So that line becomes a waste. And so you see the third and fourth line actually possessing the
Yeah.
puck better than the second line. And it's frustrating because you want you need a second line in the NHL to be a top team. You need
Yeah.
a third line, right? And it's just not happening. So
So I'm actually getting fed up of watching Newhook get his chances on the power play, whether it's PP1 or PP2. He's not he's not somebody that deserves to be on the power play. I don't think he's produced. I think he can score occasional goals, but he's not very good and smart with the puck. There are turnovers. I would rather see Heineman. Believe it or not, I'd rather see Kapanen. I'd rather see Slavkovsky, Doff. I just don't want to see New Hook on the power play anymore.
right.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I'm on the same page. I mean, from my perspective, Newhook, is disappointed. But like you said, Doc, what I would honestly do, I've talked about power plays. What I would do is I would take Doc off of the first power play. I would put Lane Hudson on it with Matheson. So you
Yeah.
basically have a left-handed shot on the right side, whether it's Matheson or Hudson quarterbacking it. I don't think I care. Like either one of those could be on the
Yeah.
right wing.
Yeah.
And then what you have is you have either Barron or Jack Eye on the second power play, kind of
Yeah.
quarterbacking it with a Doc, and then you have like the Gallaghers and the
Yeah.
Kapanens and the Heinemans of the world kind of helping them out, right? Uh, you know, the problem with the Canadians is they don't have enough offensive, threat and depth. I don't. I know you like him. I don't think a Josh Anderson belongs in the power play. I don't think a Evans or a Dvorak belong in the power play.
So I disagree. I think they're using. So remember last year when the power play for a little bit of time started to click, um, Monahan, when we had Monahan. So what did Monahan do to get the Canadians, to start scoring some goals on the power play? His role was not on the side. He literally, for a playmaking player, was sitting in front of the net, creating
Hmm.
havoc in front of the goalie. And
Hmm.
then he scored a lot of goals or by either tipping a shot in or getting a rebound that came from the point or screening the goalie. And why can't Josh Anderson do that? I think
He's
they're
not the
using
same.
Josh
They're
Anderson
not
in the
the same.
wrong
They're totally
manner.
not the same player in my opinion. Josh Monahan is more of like a Roy or an Armia type player. What they're trying to do is they're trying to put Slavkovsky in that front of the net position and do what that's and I still think that's not a bad thing
Right.
because he actually has look what he did that first goal, the pass to Caulfield on the
Right.
power play. That was a nice goal. He has really good hands. What you'll see, he'll start deflecting pucks. I don't listen. We can go on for Josh Anderson, but Josh Anderson. The problem with power plays are you need a player that can make the small, short, easy passes and be able to really control the puck, just getting it in the zone, doing things like that, and like same thing as Gallagher, right? They're both very similar players in terms of hand skills. I think Gallagher's better at getting the puck in the net at least, but Josh Anderson's better at skating and at forechecking. The problem is that's more, in my opinion, of a 5-on-5 type of player in my opinion. But listen, he's had his chances. I think I don't agree with him being on the power play. I don't think Dvorak belongs on the power play. I don't think Evans belongs on the power play. Although, Evans is an underrated player in my opinion. I know I like him, but he's the kind of player that could probably there's people on our private chat that we talk about all the time that talk about Evans as a second line player. He's not that, right? But he's a really good hockey player. He's a smart hockey player. He reminds me of a Deneau. He's got more speed than Deneau.
Yeah.
He's actually got a better shot than Deneau. So like he's an underrated player.
Except he's not, but he's not better than Deneau.
No, I know. Well, Deneau's face-off talent. I mean, it's funny. You know, we
It's
watched.
also his intelligence. He's got
Right.
a very high
Well, I
hockey
mean,
IQ.
yeah, they're both very intelligent. But
So-
you're right. He's another level. But where I'm going with that is, you know, I'll just throw this 2 cents in there. I was really, really disappointed in the Canadians after the Kings game, right? And when the Kings played the Montreal Canadiens, they looked like the old Canadians when they finished last. To be honest, like that's how bad it was, and I was super disappointed. And I got on this on this podcast, and I basically said this team is not making the playoffs, and we'll be lucky to improve this year. However, I do want to back that up a little bit. As you know, and you look over my back right shoulder, I live in Southern California, and I follow the Ducks. And the Ducks played the Kings the next game. And the Ducks have a very similar team to the Montreal Canadiens. Their top three lines are all young guys. You know, you have Cutter Gauthier, you have Leo Carlson, you have guys like, you know,
Yeah.
Trevor Zegras and McTavish. You know, I just named four guys under 21 that are basically, you know, except for Zegras, he's 22 or 23. But like basically, it's a very similar team, and they looked exactly the same. They got destroyed. It was 4-1. It was 30 shots to 15 or something. It was the same game over and over again. So the Kings, although they had a bad start against Ottawa and Toronto, they're underrated in terms of how they play the defensive side of the puck. And I think it's a guy like Deneau and Trevor Moore and all these guys and Kopitar that just have a skill set that you know make other teams look bad. So I guess what I'm saying there is, you know, if we scratch out the Kings game and we just say that was an anomaly, and you look at all the other games, then I'm feeling a bit better about the Canadians this year.
Except for a couple of things that they need to improve on. So they need to improve on these lapses, like you said, in the second and sometimes even early in the third period, where they can't get the puck out of their own zone. And this is not for one game. This has been there are moments in all the games that they've had.
It's been 2
It's
years.
usually not in, by the way, it's usually not in the first period. It's usually in the second and third period that this happens.
It's the second period. It's the second period.
It could be the third period too, and early in the third period as well.
It's the second period. Take a look at on average. I have to go find the math, but the Montreal Canadiens, for whatever reasons, have two anomalies compared to the rest of the league, and they're both things that other teams have figured out more than the Canadiens. However, it's a problem for all teams, which is the two problems they have is in the second period, you have a long change. And when you have a long change and you have a young team, you think about it, right? You're in your own end and you can't get to the bench unless you can even ice it. You can even dump it, and you may not get the right defenseman off the ice. Like it takes, and those guys, you know, and like I said before, they play this man-on-man defense. So they're moving a lot in their own end. And so they get tired. And so that's one problem they have. I just want to throw that out there. The other problem is less important because it doesn't happen as much. But last year they were 1-11-1 on back-to-back games. And this year they're 0-1 and they looked awful. So the Montreal Canadiens have to figure out how to win their back-to-back games, or at least compete in those or get better at those, because most teams, you know, lose more than they win, but the Canadiens are off the charts bad at that. And then puck possession in the second period. Martin St. Louis was asked about this in his interview, and his feedback or his comment was, guys, it's known, it's normal, forwards, but all five players don't like playing in your own end. You don't like playing in your own end. You like being in the offensive end. When you're in the offensive end, you have legs. You're somehow you're always moving around. You're getting to the puck first. In your own end, the Canadiens need to learn, and they're young. They need to learn when to and how to be aggressive in their own end. They end up being very cautious because they don't want to make a mistake. So they're playing positional hockey. They're staying inside. But if you don't be aggressive and try to get that puck early, you get stuck. And that's what's been going on. And unfortunately, they've had good goaltending except for one game, right?
Yeah.
They've had good goaltending, but that's going to be, I agree, that's their biggest problem is, and I personally, as a coach, I'm not the coach, but if I was a coach, I would look at changing the system in the second period. You can, these guys are professional hockey players. They can play two systems. I played minor hockey. I remember when we were up by, two or three goals, my coach would say, okay, now we're going to go to a 1-2-2. We're no longer going to go two man in. You're going to forecheck. Your second guy's going to stay back, and you're not, so in the second period, they need to change away from this man-on-man defense because it's not working. It's causing tiredness, and when you're tired, you can't be aggressive. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest problem they have, in my opinion.
All right, so listen, it's getting late. Let's talk about the Rangers quickly and prediction for the Rangers. I just want to go out on a limb. Is you heard what I said the last game, right? It was on the air. I predicted a 4-3 Habs victory in overtime with Lane Hudson scoring. I just want to make
he almost scored too. He had a good.
He almost scored in the overtime. He got his shot off, and it was a great scoring chance. If that had gone in, I would have looked like Nostradamus.
I was almost close too. I said 4-2, and it was 3-2 with 2 minutes left, and they pulled their goalie almost. So I was close too because I said 4-2 with a pulled goalie. So unfortunately or fortunately, Cole Caulfield scored to make me look bad, and I'm okay with that. But okay, so that's what we think. That's what we think and thought that happened last time. So why don't you go first this time in terms of what you're thinking? Because I think I said it first last time.
All right. Well, Monty's playing, and I have a feeling Monty's gonna, he's probably thinking I should have played the last game, and they started Caden. So I think Monty's gonna have a really good game. So I don't see this being a high-scoring game. I think that the Canadians win this game, not in overtime, 3-2. I think they're gonna have probably like a 3-1 lead or a 3-0 lead. And they're going to give up some late goals, and it's going to be close at the end. But I think the Canadians will prevail. So I think this is going to be one of those games where Monty holds down the fort and shows everyone again why he's candidate for top goalie in the league. That's my prediction.
All right. Okay, well, that's a bold prediction for sure because I'm looking at the standings, and the New York Rangers are 4-0-1 with a +14 goal differentiation. So they have 24 goals for and 10 goals against in 5 games.
Yeah.
So it's a bold prediction. All right, I'm not going to go totally against you this time. So my prediction this time is similar. It's not going to be a low-scoring game. I think there is going to be, I think you said the same thing, but I think there's going to be at least 3 goals apiece, and it will go into overtime this time. So I think it'll go into overtime, and I think there's going to be a goal, and I think it's going to be scored by Cole Caulfield. So I'm going in that direction. So it's a little bit different, and I do agree it's going to take Monty standing on his head. It's going to take a little bit of a change up in the lines. Now, I caveat that if the lines are exactly the same and they stay the same the whole game, they're not going to win the game. So what I think is going to happen is they're going to give up a goal in the first or second and be down 1 or 2 goals, and Martin St. Louis is going to change up the lines and something's going to click somewhere. I'm not saying I don't know if it's going to be Doc on the first line. I don't know if it's going to be Doc with other players, but something's going to click and Doc's going to score his first goal of the season. There you go.
So here's my prediction, and this is I'm going out. Lane Hudson will score his first goal.
Okay. All right. I like that one too. I like that one
first
too.
NHL goal. And they're then gonna go look for the puck, and he's gonna get his puck that he can store away for the first goal of his career.
All right. I'm in for that because still, I'm talking about 4 goals. So I have Doc scoring, I have Caulfield scoring. So I'm not calling a Lane Hudson goal, but I'll be okay with it. So I think we're on the same page. Now listen, I was really, really disappointed before last game. I think last game gave me a little bit of life in the sense that, I think now we just have to figure out how to fix the second line. to be competitive again. And I think once we get that second line figured out, which is not, I don't think it's a Newhook and Doc combination. Once we get Doc and Newhook off the line together, I think they're going to be okay. Will it happen this game on Tuesday? Maybe not. It might take 4 more games, like you said, 10 games. But again, I still feel like they have a good chance to win this game. All right. I don't think they'll win it in regulation, though. I think Rangers are just too strong to, even if they're in a lead, the Rangers are going to find a way to pull the goalie, and
Right.
they have 17 people that they can put on the ice to score goals. So, all right. I think I think that's it. Like you said, it's getting late, so appreciate the conversation. Anything else you want to add except for go Habs go, or
No, let's do it again. Go Habs, go. Monty, keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
All right.
Let's go Habs.
All right. That's it for us from Next Shift. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. All right. So we're not live anymore.
Okay.
Now it's saving. All right. Cool.